20,000 years ago, the world looked nothing like it does today. Walls of ice 3 kilometers thick stretched across entire continents. The land was silent, frozen, and brutal. And somewhere in the middle of all that, small groups of humans were trying to stay alive. What's remarkable isn't that some of them died. What's remarkable is that any of them made it at all. And not only did they make it, they left behind art, tools, and structures that still amaze archaeologists today. This is the story of how our ancestors survived one of the harshest periods in Earth's history. To understand how humans survived, you first need to understand what they were surviving. The last ice age peaked around 20,000 years ago, a period scientists call the last glacial maximum. Massive ice sheets had swallowed most of North America, Europe, and Asia. Sea levels were 120 meters lower than today, which completely reshaped the continents. Britain was physically connected to mainland Europe. You could walk from Russia to Alaska on dry land. The average temperature was around 6 degrees colder than today. That shift transformed entire ecosystems. Forests retreated. Vast frozen grasslands, called the Mammoth Steppe, stretched across thousands of kilometers. And on those grasslands lived creatures of extraordinary size. Woolly mammoths weighing up to 6 tons. Cave lions larger than any lion alive today. Giant deer whose antlers spanned wider than a car. Woolly rhinoceroses. This was the landscape. This was what humans woke up to every morning. And they had to figure out, generation by generation, how to exist within it. The single most important factor in human survival during the Ice Age was fire. Humans had been using fire long before the Ice Age reached its peak, but during the coldest millennia, the relationship between humans and fire became something deeper than utility. It became the organizing principle of daily life. Controlling fire in temperatures that dropped to -30 or -40 degrees was an extraordinary achievement for a creature with no fur, no natural insulation, and a body designed for much warmer climates. Fire provided warmth, obviously. It also transformed food. Cooked meat is significantly easier to digest, which means the body could extract more energy from less. In an environment where calories were hard to come by, that difference was enormous. It also changed the social structure of early humans. People gathered around fires at night. They talked, planned, shared knowledge, told stories. That nightly ritual of sitting together around a flame created something that went beyond survival. It created culture. Archaeological sites across Europe and Asia show evidence of fires maintained in the same locations for thousands of years. These weren't temporary camps. These were homes, passed down through generations, with fire at their center. Fire needed somewhere to exist, and so did the people tending it. Caves were the first and most obvious solution. The famous painted caves of France and Spain, Lascaux, Altamira, give us a vivid picture of Ice Age life. These spaces were not just shelters. They were decorated, maintained, and returned to across generations. They meant something to the people who lived in them. On the open tundra, far from any natural cave, humans did something that still surprises researchers today. They built their own structures, using mammoth bones. At a site in Ukraine called Mezhyrich, archaeologists uncovered a series of structures built from the bones and tusks of nearly 150 mammoths. The bones were arranged deliberately, interlocked for stability, and almost certainly covered with animal hides to seal out the wind. Think about what this required. Sourcing that many bones meant either hunting on a massive scale or systematically collecting remains across a wide area over a long period of time. Either way, it required planning, coordination, and a level of social organization that most people don't associate with Ice Age humans. These were not people reacting blindly to their environment. They were engineering solutions to it. Finding enough to eat in a frozen world was a constant and demanding challenge. The Mammoth Steppe, for all its harshness, supported enormous herds of large animals. Mammoths, bison, reindeer, wild horses. These animals were the primary food source for Ice Age humans. A single mammoth, successfully hunted, could feed a group for weeks. Hunting a mammoth, however, was not a simple task. A 6-ton animal with tusks and the temperament to match required a level of strategy that goes well beyond what most people imagine when they think of prehistoric hunters. Evidence points to coordinated group hunts, driving herds toward natural traps like cliffs, river crossings, or boggy ground where the animal's size worked against them. The weapons used were more sophisticated than the image of a man with a rock might suggest. Spear throwers, known as atlats, were in use during this period. Devices that dramatically increased both the range and force of a thrown spear. Hunting was only part of the food strategy. Ice Age humans were highly adaptable in their diet. Fish, birds, plant roots, berries, and nuts all featured depending on the season and location. Archaeological evidence shows deliberately dug storage pits, where food was preserved through the cold months. They understood seasons. They thought ahead. They were managing resources, not just consuming them. The human body is remarkably poorly equipped for cold. We are a tropical species, built for heat, not for tundra. Our skin offers almost no insulation, and our core temperature drops dangerously fast in extreme cold. The solution was clothing, and the clothing Ice Age humans created was far more sophisticated than simply wrapping a hide around the body. Archaeologists have found bone needles at Ice Age sites, thin, precisely crafted, and functionally almost identical to modern sewing needles. These tools allowed humans to cut and stitch animal hides into fitted garments, clothing that actually conformed to the body, sealed heat in, and kept wind and moisture out. The difference between a wrapped hide and a sewn, fitted garment in -30-degree weather is the difference between frostbite and survival. There's an unusual piece of genetic evidence that speaks to how long humans have been doing this. Scientists studying body lice, which can only survive in clothing, found that clothing lice diverged from head lice approximately 170,000 years ago. That divergence marks the point at which humans began wearing clothes regularly enough for a separate louse population to evolve. 170,000 years of wearing clothes, long before the Ice Age even reached its peak. Fire, shelter, food, clothing, each of these was essential. None of them, however, fully explains why humans survived when so many other species did not. The real advantage was something harder to see in the archaeological record, but unmistakably there once you know where to look. It was the network. Ice Age humans were not isolated groups struggling independently in their own corners of the world. They were connected. Shells from the Mediterranean coast have been found at inland sites hundreds of kilometers away. Specific types of flint, traceable to single quarry locations, turn up thousands of kilometers from their origin. Ochre, ivory, and other materials moved across the continent in patterns that can only be explained by deliberate trade and exchange. This network meant that a group experiencing a hard season wasn't necessarily a group that died. Resources could move, knowledge could travel. A technique discovered in one region could spread across a continent within generations. And knowledge was perhaps the most valuable thing being exchanged. Ice Age humans passed down survival information through teaching, through ritual, and through story. Many researchers now believe that cave paintings served partly as information systems, records of animal migration patterns, hunting grounds, seasonal changes, a library carved into stone for people who had no other way to write things down. The cold killed many things during the Ice Age. It could not kill an idea that had already been shared with 100 other people across 1,000 kilometers of frozen land. The Ice Age ended around 11,700 years ago. The ice retreated slowly, the oceans rose, and the world gradually became the one we recognize today. The humans who lived through those 100,000 years left behind more than bones and tools. They left behind proof that intelligence, adaptability, and a willingness to work together can overcome almost anything the natural world puts in front of you. There's something worth sitting with in that. The same species that painted the walls of Lascaux, that built homes from mammoth bones on frozen plains, that sewed fitted clothing with needles carved from bone. That species is us. We haven't changed as much as we sometimes think. If you want to keep exploring stories like this one, subscribe to Curious Academy. Every week we go deep on the questions about human history that are worth asking. See you in the next one.